Inner relationship focusing. IRF, befriend your inner universe. Picture your mind as a crowded room of chaos, and in a quiet corner, there's a softer, wiser part of you who waits patiently to be heard. Inner relationship focusing. IRF is the practice of slowing down, wandering those inner hallways and listening. IRF is akin to disregarding the chattering chaos of surface-level worries and then listening to the subtle murmurs of your deeper self. Developed by Ann Weiser Cornell and Barbara McGavin as an evolution of Eugene Gendlin's original focusing method, IRF is a structured yet deeply intuitive way of exploring your inner world with kindness and curiosity. IRF is like sitting with a trusted friend over coffee, except the friend is you, and the coffee is the rich, steaming brew of your own unexplored emotions. The essence of inner relationship focusing, a compassionate dialogue. At its heart, IRF is built on a revolutionary idea. Every part of you, no matter how messy or uncomfortable, has value and deserves to be heard. Imagine your emotions as eccentric but well-meaning neighbors. Anxiety isn't just a nuisance knocking at your door at 3 a.m. It might actually be trying to deliver an important message. Irritation isn't just a grumpy old man yelling at clouds. It could be pointing to an unmet need. The magic of IRF lies in its approach. Instead of battling, suppressing, or overanalyzing your feelings, you learn to be with them, patiently, curiously, without an agenda. The process typically unfolds in a few key steps. Pausing the mental noise. Modern life is a never-ending scroll of distractions, obligations, and internal chatter. IRF begins with a simple but radical act, stopping. You step out of the whirlwind of thoughts and drop into your body. This is a shift from thinking about your experience to being with it, noticing the felt sense. Eugene Gendlin coined this term to describe the subtle, bodily felt meaning of an issue. It's not quite an emotion, not quite a thought, but more like the vibe of a situation. That heavy weight in your chest when you think about work? The fluttery unease before a difficult conversation? That's the felt sense. It's fuzzy at first, like a half-remembered dream, but as you pay attention, it begins to clarify, keeping company with what arises. Here's where IRF differs from typical problem-solving. Instead of analyzing, why do I feel this way, or judging, I shouldn't feel like this, you simply acknowledge what's there. You might silently say, hello, tightness in my shoulders, I notice you're here and I'm listening. This isn't passive resignation. It's active, respectful attention, allowing shifts to happen. When you stop fighting an emotion and instead give it space, something fascinating occurs. It often begins to change on its own. A knot of anger might soften into sadness. A vague dread might crystallize into a specific concern. These shifts aren't forced. They unfold naturally, like a flower opening in sunlight. Why IRF is like a superpower for your emotional well-being. The benefits of inner relationship focusing are diverse, but here's why it's worth your time. Emotional alchemy, turning leaden feelings into gold. Most of us have two default settings for difficult emotions. Avoidance, I'll just binge Netflix until this goes away, or over-identification, I am consumed by this sadness. IRF offers a third way, which is witnessing with kindness. When you greet anger, fear, or shame with curiosity instead of resistance, they often lose their power to overwhelm. What once felt like a tidal wave might reveal itself as a misunderstood messenger saying, hey, you've been ignoring this important thing. Ending the inner civil war. Ever had an argument with yourself? I should be over this by now, versus, but I'm still hurt. IRF teaches you to lay down your weapons and invite both sides to the negotiation table. Often the part of you that's irrational or overreacting is just trying to protect you in its own clumsy way. When you listen, you might discover that your procrastination isn't laziness. It's a cautious inner voice saying, this task feels overwhelming, so let's slow down. Better decision-making, without paralysis. Faced with big choices, we often drown in pros and cons lists, seeking certainty where none exists. IRF helps you tap into embodied wisdom, the kind that lives in your gut, not just your brain. That nagging hesitation about a job offer? That inexplicable yes feeling about a risky opportunity? Your felt sense often knows before your rational mind catches up. Deeper, more authentic relationships. When you learn to approach your own emotions with patience, you naturally extend that grace to others. IRF cultivates empathy not as a moral obligation, but as an organic outgrowth of self-understanding. Turns out, it's easier to stay patient with your partner's quirks when you're not secretly at war with your own. A quieter mind without meditating. While IRF isn't a substitute for meditation, it shares some Zen-like perks. By practicing non-judgmental awareness, you train your brain to step out of compulsive thinking. Over time, even the noisiest mental metropolises grow a little more peaceful, unlocking creative flow. Artists, writers, and creators often hit blocks not because they lack skill, but because they're at odds with their inner critic. IRF helps you gently sidestep self-judgment and reconnect with the quiet, intuitive part of you that already knows what and how to create. Healing old wounds. Traditional therapy sometimes involves reliving painful memories. IRF, by contrast, lets you approach past hurts at your own pace. You might discover that a childhood shaming event doesn't need a dramatic confrontation, just a compassionate acknowledgement to finally loosen its grip. The science behind the magic, still skeptical? Well, dear viewer, IRF isn't just speculation. Research in somatic psychology and neuroscience supports the idea that attending to bodily felt sensations can rewire emotional patterns. Studies on mindfulness and interoception, awareness of internal body signals, show that practices like IRF can reduce anxiety. It can also improve emotional regulation and even enhance immune function. A typical IRF therapy session, a step-by-step journey inward. Imagine walking into a therapist's office and you're guided into a gentle, exploratory conversation with yourself. A typical IRF session is less like traditional talk therapy and more like a mindful, body-aware dialogue where you learn to listen to the deeper layers of your experience. Settling in, creating a safe, welcoming space. The therapist might invite you to take a few deep breaths, notice your body, or briefly check in with how you're feeling. Identifying a focus, what wants attention? What's most present for you right now? It might be a feeling, a situation, or even just a vague sense of something. Dropping into the felt sense, the heart of IRF. You're sensing something in you that... Can you sense where this feeling lives in your body? Maybe your stomach, throat, or shoulders? Don't analyze it, just notice. Keeping company, the art of friendly attention. Here's the revolutionary part. Instead of trying to change the feeling, you simply be with it. This is where IRF's inner relationship truly shines. The therapist could say, if this feeling had a voice, what might it say? Receiving shifts when the ice begins to melt. As you hold the feeling with kindness, it often begins to transform on its own. These shifts can be subtle but profound physical changes, emotional shifts, or new insights. Closing, honoring the process. The session ends with acknowledgement, not forced resolution. The therapist may say, would it feel right to thank this part of you for being here today? Why your inner world deserves a kind listener. In a world obsessed with productivity, self-optimization, and fixing ourselves into some flawless ideal, inner relationship focusing is a rebellious act of kindness. It's the art of saying, you don't have to change for me to care about you. And here's the beautiful paradox. When we stop trying to force transformation, it often happens on its own. Insights arise, burdens lighten, and we discover that much of our suffering came not from the emotions themselves, but from the war we waged against them. So, the next time you feel tangled up inside, consider pulling up a chair, pouring a metaphorical cup of tea, and listening, not to fix, but to understand. Your inner world has been waiting for this conversation for a long, long time. And who knows? You might just meet a wiser, kinder version of yourself along the way.
Disclaimer: this video is for informational and educational purposes only, and not intended to give psychotherapeutic advice.